I'm going to tell you everything you need to know about the Anthropic IPO, when it's happening, what the price values look like, and also at the end of the video, where you can already access the pre-IPO stock if you'd like to get in early. So first thing to cover, a few months ago, I did some videos on the SpaceX IPO. If you look back at my channel, I explained why I felt that SpaceX was going to drop like a rock on the IPO, that their IPO value was far too high. If you look at the prices, I was very much right about that. I'm usually a skeptic of IPOs. I think they're built to kind of pop and then drop in value. My opinion on this IPO is actually quite different. I think that the Anthropic IPO is going to be far more exciting. I think it'll actually have a steady bull run and it'll move up after the IPO date. And I'm going to explain why I feel that way and why I didn't feel that way on the SpaceX and where you can actually trade this in advance. So, the first thing to understand is, compared to SpaceX, Anthropic is a far newer business. There is a lot more money trying to get their hands on Anthropic than there is on SpaceX. If you were a private investor or you had a bunch of money and you wanted SpaceX stock, you had, many years, say the past 8 or more, where you could have probably bought, SpaceX stock relatively easily, meaning that the buy pressure at the IPO wasn't that high, right? Whereas Anthropic stock is notoriously difficult to access. Even top venture funds and private equity firms are having a very hard time finding ways to get it, even to the point where in San Francisco, a lot of people are actually, trying to sell their homes in exchange for Anthropic private stock. So that just gives you a sense of how high the demand is. The second major difference here is Anthropic's revenue is going absolutely parabolic, right? Like over the last quarter alone, meaning the last 3 months, Anthropic's revenue has more than doubled. If you take into account compounding returns over the past few months, meaning all of 2026, they've almost doubled on average every single month. So their growth is just insane. They're making huge amounts of money. They're up to I think like $65 billion a month right now in revenue. All of that I think is going to be priced into the IPO in a much different way than it did for SpaceX, for example. Anthropic is rumored to be trying to IPO at around $2 trillion. This is a similar price that SpaceX was trying to IPO at. They are now, far below that, about half of that. But I think Anthropic has a far better chance of hitting that 2 billion on the IPO date, as well as maybe very much surpassing it. The other major difference here is a lot more people have a direct connection to Anthropic than they do to SpaceX. If you think about all your friends, think about some rich friends you have, they probably use Claude, Anthropic's product, right? Because Anthropic makes Claude. Therefore, they're a lot more likely to want skin in the game to buy the stock because it's something they actually like. Whereas nobody has been inside of a SpaceX rocket ship. If you're putting money in there, it's probably just because you're an Elon Musk fanboy, right? So for all these reasons, I do think the Anthropic IPO is going to do extremely well on the IPO date. It's in a far buzzier space, right? It's one of the only two probably really exciting AI companies, and I think they're set to beat OpenAI to the IPO market, which means a lot of the money that wants exposure to major AI companies is going to just go ahead and jump into Anthropic on the IPO, and maybe they will allocate more to OpenAI when the time comes. But that first mover advantage that Anthropic has is very real, reaching the public markets first. So moving on to how you can actually position for this, where can you trade it, etc. Let's dive into that. It's obviously not going to be on your leading apps like Coinbase or Robinhood or Schwab or Fidelity yet. You would have to wait all the way until the IPO. The place where you can actually trade this is in something called perpetual markets. This isn't as complicated as it sounds. It's really quite easy. You can just do this directly inside of your, iOS or Android app, and I'm going to show you how to do that. This is where I'm playing the pre-IPO Anthropic stock here. It's quite easy to find once you get inside. Keep in mind, you are trading the actual number of the price of the stock, not owning the stock itself. So it's a little bit different, but that is essentially the same if your goal is to speculate, not actually have like voting rights in the company. This is running on Hyperliquid. So that is kind of how this market is facilitated so far in advance. You can also bet against it, which is quite nice as well. Remember, this is not financial advice. You should definitely do your own research on this. I could totally be wrong. I'm going to be going long on this. I'm quite bullish on it. Let me know how you're playing the stock and also what kind of positions you guys are making.